Let's now solve this question on monopoly. This question was a part of the past years of Delhi School of Economics. So let's try and see what the question is saying here. So there is a monopolist seller who produces good and with a constant marginal cost, and the cost is given to you as C. So the cost is given to you as C, and the monopolist sells the entire output to the consumer, whose utility from consuming X unit is given by this. So this is the utility that he gets from consuming X units. Now, T here is the payment made by consumer to the monopolist. So, I can also say that theta root X is the total utility that you get from it. T is the payment that I make to the monopolist. So the net utility that you get by consuming it is theta root X minus T. So you reduce the cost and you get the net utility. Sometimes in the question you would not be given the utility function, but you would be told that the total utility is this, the payment made by the consumer is this, and you have to yourself identify and write what the net utility function is going to be. So now it says that where T is the payment made by the consumer to the monopolist. Suppose consumer's outside option is 0. So either I buy from the monopolist. If I buy from monopolist, I get theta root X by T. Whereas if I don't buy from the monopolist, then in that case I get 0. So all that I want is that theta root X minus T. This is the net utility I'm getting from consuming it from the monopolist should be greater than 0. Because this is my second best option. This is my opportunity cost. If the second best option is better, I will never go for this one, right? I will go and buy from the monopolist only when this net utility that I get is at least greater than 0. If this is negative, then you will not buy. I mean, you go to the market and buy, or you don't buy. Okay. So now it says, then what is the monopolist profit? So, to find out the profit of the monopolist, I have to maximize revenue minus cost. Now, what is the revenue that monopolist gets? Monopolist gets a revenue of T. This is the revenue that the monopolist gets. What is the cost that the monopolist is going to incur? The marginal cost. So T is the revenue that the monopolist generates, as is written here. T is the payment made by the consumer. CX is the amount of cost incurred. So you see that the total payment that the consumer made for X units was T. So T is like the total revenue. I have to find out the total cost. So the total cost is going to be marginal cost into the number of units that are there. So C into number of unit gives you the total cost. So total revenue minus total cost is the profit. But now, when will I make a profit? I, as a monopolist, will make a profit only when people will buy from me. Only then I can make a profit, right? And when will people buy from me? People would buy from me only when the utility that they get from buying it from me is greater than the utility from the next best thing. So, I will buy it from the monopolist only when this is greater than equal to 0. I'm either indifferent or I am having a higher utility from buying it from the monopolist. So, greater than or equal to 0. So then this becomes my problem. I have to maximize the profit of the monopolist subject to the condition that people would at least gain utility as much as they get from the second best option. So now if I have to solve this, you clearly understand that this constraint is binding in optimum. Because it is binding in optimum, you directly have theta root x minus t is equal to 0. So if theta root x minus t is equal to 0, from here I get t is equal to theta root t is equal to theta root x, right? Now, if t is equal to theta root x, I mean, the amount that is charged by the monopolist is equal to this, then, acha, okay, so let's explain this. Why is this happening, you know? So try and understand what I'm doing here. So now I'm saying that I have a constraint function, and the constraint is that the net utility of the consumers should be at least 0, because that is what they're getting from the other option, or it should be greater than 0. This is all that I have in mind. Now, understand that I am a monopolist. I have to, maximize my profits. I would maximize my profit when I will charge maximum price from the consumers. That is when I maximize my profit. So, suppose, I charge a price of 10 rupees, and the price of 10 rupees gives consumer net utility of, say, 5 utils. Then I understand that even when I suppose I now charge a price of 12 rupees, the net utility of consumer falls to 4 utils. I keep on charging a higher price, and I reach a price of, suppose, 17 rupees. This gives the net utility to consumer as 1 utils. Okay, now this is the utility. Now understand, even when I charge a higher price, suppose I charge 18 and it gives consumer the utility of 0, I am fine. The consumer will still buy from me. Why? Because the second best option is giving him 0. And this function is that the net utility of the consumer should be greater than or equal to 0. So, I will keep increasing the price of the good as long as the utility of the consumer comes down to 0. I will not increase it more than 18, because now if I increase it further, the net utility is going to be negative. I don't want the net utility to be negative. I want the net utility to be 0. So that is what we do. Had this, suppose the consumer was getting a net utility of 5 from any other thing, then I would have charged 5. I mean, I would have made sure that the net utility of the consumer is exactly 5 by consuming my commodity, because that is what he is getting from outside. So the point is, that I charge the maximum price possible so that the net utility of the consumer is either 0 or a little more than 0. I would want it to be 0. Is that okay? So now what happens is, so this point is clear that it has to be binding in the sense that I will exactly equate it to 0, because I want to charge more and more price. I want to charge a price as high as possible. So, once I do that, my constraint is theta root x minus t is equal to 0. So, t becomes theta root x. Once t becomes theta root x, instead of t, I replace theta root x here in the function that I have to maximize. And after replacing, I get this. So now I have to maximize theta root x. This is actually the value of t coming from the constraint, minus cx, and subject to t. So just differentiate the function with respect to t. So after you differentiate it, you get this, right? And find the value of x. So this is the amount that the consumer will consume. This is x, right? What is the value of x that maximizes the profit of the monopolist? This is the value of x that maximizes the profits of the monopolist. Now, the next question is, if this is x star, then what is the maximum profit? So, you know, my profit was theta root x minus cx. This is the profit. I'll just put down the value of x here. So once you put the value of x, you'll get theta root x minus cx is this. So this is the maximum value of the profit. So, you know, the answer here is B. B is the correct answer for this question. Okay. Thank you.